Okay, greetings everyone. Hello, my name is Joe Michie, joining you from beautiful Denver, but it's incredibly dry and hot right now. But excited for this discussion today. Thank you all for joining us. We have a few more folks trickling in, but incredibly excited to get started here on our conversation on developing equity-centered, high-impact practices and minority serving institutions. Whether you're a minority institution or headed in that direction or not there yet, we're really excited to have some folks who are some of the most passionate I've ever met in my 20 years of doing this. So let's get into it. So as we're getting started, that's a picture of me. I'm Joe Michie, based in Denver. I've been higher ed adjacent for 20 years, working with presidents, provosts, deans, and directors, and trying to think about closing equity gaps and trying to do more with less, which is the mantra of higher education at the moment. And we're going to be focusing on those two things today in our conversation, using mentorship as a vehicle to think about this. So without further ado, let's meet our amazing panel. Susanna Jones, longtime friend and inspiration to all of us. And then Marisa Jimison, I'm excited to have both of your perspectives, two very different perspectives, but both incredibly student-centered in everything you do. We'd love for each of you to say hello and talk a bit about the many hats that you wear at San Francisco State. Go ahead, Susanna.
Hi. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Susanna Jones. I am a professor and the first year experience faculty director at San Francisco State. I have launched peer-to-peer, our peer mentoring program with Mentor Collective back in the spring of 2018 and have been working consistently with the team. And so happy to be here today.
Thank you. Marisa?
Hey everyone, I'm Marisa Jimison, Transfer Support Coordinator for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management and Division of Undergraduate Ed and Academic Planning. And I also run a transfer peer mentorship program, and the California Promise program for SFSU. So it's nice to be here. And thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you all. Really excited to get your perspectives. Just to lay out the most productive meeting possible. For everyone, make sure your audio is on mute. Make sure your camera's on so we can see you. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. Susanna, a lot of you know Susanna because you're in the Cal State system or have met her at conferences. She would love to see your face. Also, if you could go to your name and go ahead and put your first and last name so we know who is participating in case you want to learn more or so we can chat back and forth, and do submit questions throughout. Don't hold back. I'm going to try to read them. A couple of my other colleagues are going to be answering them in the chat, and then anything we don't get to, we've got time reserved at the end, which brings us to our agenda. I'm first going to share a couple pieces of research that you probably have seen in Inside Higher Ed in the last month or two, just to set the stage of like, why are we talking about this? Why is it relevant? And why did we land here? And then that's going to bring us to the case study, which is why we all came. So we'll spend the most time there and then reserve 10 minutes at the end for some questions. Great. To get us going, I always like to do a poll. If it comes up here, we're going to be launching a poll to say, what is keeping you up at night? What are your top barriers to driving student success? You can pick more than one. I'm sure pretty much all of these apply. However, we want to use this to kind of frame the conversation today. What are the trends that you're seeing? Is it lack of engagement, underutilized student support resources, faculty and staff capacity constraints, which we're going to talk about today, budget constraints, always a thing, especially now for many in California and throughout the country. And then decentralized versus siloed data collection, something we will definitely touch on as well. All right, so it's looking like the bulk of folks are saying lack of student engagement. That is amazing. That is a trend that's been predominant, maybe a year or two after we're settling out of the pandemic, but continues to be a trend. It used to be you would buy pizza and people would show up to an event. That's not really the case anymore. So what are people doing to reach this new generation of students where they're at and to engage them in new ways? I think that's a timely question for today. we're also seeing faculty and staff constraints. That's definitely something we can touch on as well. Great, thank you all. That helps us set the stage. All right. Following up on that, it is amazing that everyone said lack of engagement, because we are seeing that, right? 33% decline in engagement in terms of students not spending time on things outside of the classroom. When you survey these students, they do say they want to be involved outside the classroom. They do want to do things. They want to go to events. They just don't feel like they can. They don't always have help-seeking behaviors. They don't always have the time, the drive. It's not always right in front of them. And I think social media has all made us feel like we want things right in front of us on demand. So that is definitely a trend we are seeing everywhere. Growing student need, a lack of awareness of resources. And I'm going to get to this in the next slide. We were seeing a drastic decrease in people knowing that basic resources exist on campus and where to find them, which is leading to the retention and graduation challenges that continue to persist. And then all of us wearing more hats with less funding, which is something that 38% of you just mentioned as well. All right. So when we think about how do we solve for those four things, this is a recent study in Inside Higher Ed. Students are opening up to friends for things that maybe they shouldn't. They are asking their friend, should I add or drop this class? Their friend is not trained to answer that question, but they ask them anyways because they're not going to be judged or graded. And the power dynamics are very easy to ask them. So how do you leverage that? How do you tap into your greatest cheerleaders, your students who are maybe on the sideline, even though you have all of these other resources? So how do you maybe tap into the fact that we're going to open up to a peer first and then direct them to a faculty member or staff? Most of our work today will be focused on peer-to-peer mentoring. That is the name of Susanna's program, peer-to-peer. We also focus on industry mentoring, graduate mentoring, a number of different other types of mentoring. But if we're going to move the needle on sense of belonging, peer-to-peer is a very obvious place to start. And here's some more research to back that up. I mentioned a lack of awareness. This is a study from Titan Partners from 2023. The maroon bar is whether or not a campus in this survey offered this resource. So we've got advising, disabilities, tutoring, library, mental health, career, financial aid. And then the dark green line is whether or not they're aware of it. So only 65% of students across all of these campuses aware of advising, and only 54% taking advantage. So I think that sets the stage as to the work that's cut out in terms of increasing awareness, increasing utilization of all these resources. Because if they're not taking advantage of advising, something that we assume that most folks are aware of, then they're definitely not going to take advantage of some of these other resources like the food pantry, military services, things like that. That study also measured sense of belonging across awareness of resources. So at the bottom axis, you'll see 14 different resources, whether or not students were aware of those. And then the three colored lines are whether or not they scored high in terms of their percentile, in terms of feeling like they belong. The question was, how strongly do you agree with this statement? I feel like I belong at my school. And the correlation here is the more resources they use and are aware of, the stronger they belong, which brings us to a quote from our panelist today, Susanna Jones. She said, sense of belonging is the door that opens learning. Susanna, what did you mean by that?
Sure. Hi, Joe. The research shows that sense of belonging is critical for student learning, and that when you create bridges to help students transition to the university, that they are better prepared to begin the learning process. And the sooner that we can start those processes and supports and put those in place is a gift that we can offer our students. So it's, the literature, it's all over the literature about the importance of sense of belonging. And that's one of the main goals that actually drove us to launch this program back in 2018, 2019.
Thank you. And great segue. Let's keep that in mind throughout this. It doesn't matter how good our supports are. If folks don't feel like they belong at the institution, that's going to be a barrier to them using them. So great. Marisa, and with the help of Susanna as well, could you give me a lay of the land of San Francisco State? Can you set the stage as to its mission as a minority serving institution, and how that plays into how you decide what programming you're going to offer.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, SF State is one of 23 campuses in the Cal State University system, and it's also the largest four-year public university system in the U.S. So we're in HSI, and we have a very diverse student body. So I think really the goal of SF State really aligns with the institutional goals across the university system of closing those equity gaps. And that's something that's really happening across all of higher ed. We're trying to make sure that students who have additional barriers get the resources they need to be successful and meet graduation goals on time. Yeah.
Thank you. Keeping that profile of who SFSU is. Susanna, how do you see peer relationships playing a role in the strategic vision, those at the chancellor level, both of the system and of the university? Why did you set out on this path? How did it align to the big picture of the entire system and university?
Mhm. Good question. So as Marisa just said, we're fortunate to be part of the California State University system. And many years ago, the CSUs launched Graduation Initiative 2025 and supporting all students to the graduation finish line has been a top priority for not just San Francisco State, but the entire CSU system. And our completion strategy is primarily driven by that graduation initiative from the chancellor's office. And that work is also central to our campus's strategic plan. So at San Francisco State, our current graduation initiative is committed to removing obstacles to student success, which then enable students to experience personal transformations that not only have a lasting impact on their own personal experience, but when we get students to graduate, there's a lasting impact on the state of California and the economy of California. So those graduation goals are set metrics around 4-year and 6-year graduation goals. We don't need to go into those details, but part of our strategic plan and our campus plan is structured around 6 strategies. And one of the most important strategies that's connected to this peer mentor work is our 4th strategy, which is that we want to offer a high quality student experience in the first year of college for all incoming freshmen. And I want to expand on that because it's a little bit deeper than that. It's to offer a quality student experience, not just to first year students coming into college. There's special attention to that, but also to transfer students. So we know that transition coming in is really important. As we just saw in our data, 30+% of our students are first gen. So it's really important that we create structures and initiatives and programs and supports that really are meeting students where they're at, the students who come to San Francisco State. And we do that through developing these effective targeted support services, which peer-to-peer is one of the largest on our campus right now. And its main goal is not just sense of belonging, but to, as Marisa said, to help close equity gaps and to help get students all the way through to graduation.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Susanna. Oh, go ahead, Marisa.
Oh yeah, I was going to jump in that, I think one of the advantages of, having peer-to-peer in place is because it's campus wide, it, there's so many things that can get overlooked if you have different programs, niche programs run in different departments and different colleges. I mean, students have more difficulty finding the resource, peer mentorship. So when it's centralized, it's easier to find for students. It's a more consistent experience across the board, I think. So it's nice that it gives you a bird's eye view of really what's taking place at SF State, but also it's easier for campus partners to jump on board and get involved, and easier for students to access because it's campus wide. Yeah.
So it's campus-wide now, but this started with an individual college, right? Susanna, back when you were in the College of Health and Social Sciences, what does that journey look like? How have you unified the colleges? That's no easy task. How are you bringing together stakeholders in some interesting ways, I guess?
Yeah, so back in 2019, peer-to-peer started as a relatively small program in the College of Health and Social Service, Health and Social Sciences. So we piloted it to see what it was going to work like. And over the next 3 years, we saw such promising results, and the program grew within the College of Health and Social Science that we decided in 2023-24 that we were going to launch campus-wide. So we went from a program that was serving roughly anywhere between 600, a little bit more mentees, to now we're serving, or in this last year, 23-24, served over 2,300 incoming first-time freshmen and transfer students with over 650 mentors. So we've really been able to scale program. Every single first-time freshman and transfer student, every new student is offered to the opportunity to opt into peer-to-peer.
And Susanna, so does each associate dean within each college have kind of a stake in kind of helping to shape the program or staying abreast of challenges and covered through the program? How do you keep them kind of in it, while at the same time running a program that really is the university's program?
Yeah, good question. So Marisa and I oversee peer-to-peer and facilitate the program and administer the overall program. And then we have our associate deans in each of our 6 colleges are responsible for responding to each of the flags that come in from our mentors when there's a concern or some issue or something that a mentor wants us to know. They submit a flag, and each associate dean responds according to the mentee, and if the mentee's in their college, they're responding to that mentor and that flag. So it's really a wonderful program. Our program lives right now in academic affairs. So having the involvement of our associate deans is really critical for this. And they talk to the department chairs and department faculty about this program. So there's been, over the course of the last 5 years, a real effort to bring along the entire campus community. And I'll talk a little bit later in our slides about the role and our newer partnership with enrollment management. So we're really building out this program so it's not existing, quietly over here with Marisa and I, but instead there's buy-in and participation from lots of stakeholders across campus.
Excellent. All right. So with that, let's get into some of the numbers and what this looks like. But I do want to say, Marisa, you just got a shout out in the text. Someone said, yes, transfer students. So we're applauding your work that you do with transfer students. All right. So how are you leveraging peer mentorship to develop an ecosystem for first-time freshmen and transfer students? Marisa, do you want to take that? I know there's a lot here.
Yeah, there's quite a bit to say. Yeah, so for student engagement, well, some things we've done in the past, particularly for the mentors, because the mentors currently, it's unpaid, it's all volunteer work, but we do try to have events to show them that we're grateful and that they're appreciated. So we have like pizza parties, and just as a way to kind of get them together, build a sense of community, and then also say thank you. And then there's other things that we've done more recently. We launched a Canva training course. So that's in addition to the training that Peer-to-Peer Mentor Collective has. So they take the training first within Mentor Collective, and it kind of builds out the foundations for what mentors need to know. And then they have the training course that we've created, and that it almost serves as a directory to campus resources in a way where mentors can interact with one another and build a bit of community, but also understand what's available on campus. So that's one way that we're trying to engage people. It helps the mentors because they know more, they can share that information with their mentees. And then also we recently launched a landing page. So it's a nice way to I think have students just be aware of the program and know that there's that opportunity. You know, they hear about it, they receive a postcard, but they're also able to access it easily online. Yeah.
If you Google peer-to-peer SFSU, up will come their landing page. It is amazing. Susanna has built this over the years with the help of some students who create some videos. There's a video from the student perspective talking about the things they're talking about. And it may be anything from, talking about hobbies and challenges and clubs and organizations to actually being stumped on an academic question and getting them to someone who can help. So they did an amazing job of capturing what does this relationship look like. It doesn't always have to take place face-to-face. It could happen wherever. And I think they did a great job of showing that, as well as just identifying why does this program exist and who is it for. Marisa, can you tell us a little bit about the Canva page you just mentioned? This is a list of resources that are San Francisco State specific that mentors will be trained on, in addition to the training that Mentor Collective does. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So it's an opt-in. So we don't force mentors to do it, but they're welcome to opt in. And we send out the invitation after they've completed the Mentor Collective training. So we make sure that they've covered those bases before we even offer it. But it really has it's set up by theme and also by the different resources. So for example, if someone needs resources to counseling and psychological services, or if someone is having trouble with buying groceries, they can look up the information and see our programs for the food pantry, right? There's different ways that students can go about getting the information. And I think we have a lot of this available on the SF State website, but it's nice to have it consolidated in one place that's easily accessible and easy to navigate. It's a pretty inviting Canva training course. So I think that, just having it set up in a way where mentors are inclined to look at it, they're aware of the resources without having to do the extra work of looking it up online, is really helpful, because they're more likely to actually utilize it and share that with their mentees. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I think that syncs nicely with the chat question we just got in the chat. How are you targeting or engaging specific groups, minority groups, international groups, different identities on campus? Let's jump into that. So this is what the program looks like. Many of you are probably wondering, what is this thing? What does this actually look like? So I want to just mention a little bit about what this looks like, and then please, Susanna and Marisa, chime in with how you kind of message this differently, provide different resources for certain groups, and how we can kind of look at the data differently for certain groups in order to engage them in new ways. So Mentor Collective is kind of the invisible infrastructure to make mentorship scale and to collect data that you normally would not get from a mentorship program. And then the program itself is ran by Susanna and Marisa. They are the face of it, but they are not spending their time recruiting, training, tracking, matching, and assessment, which is what they would normally do if they were just going to start a program in-house and run it on their own. They would be buried in spreadsheets, a lot of spreadsheets, and that's where their time would go. Instead, we take over that part, the part of actually getting students to want to do this, engage in it, nudge them when they're not engaging, match them, give them things to talk about, and then give the data back to Marisa and Susanna so they can spend their time looking at the data, saying this student's feeling like they don't belong or needs help from the food pantry, and then also reaching out to the students. So Marisa's time spent actually interacting with transfers versus being buried in a spreadsheet trying to play matchmaker, which is what she would do without an infrastructure. So a note comes out from the chancellor, as it has in the past. Is that right, Susanna, at San Francisco State?
The president.
Or from the president. So folks, this is an SFSU program. It's not some random technology reaching out to them. So there's an actual face, and then any replies to that come to Marisa and Susanna, and then we continue recruitment from there. So Mentor Collective takes over with a series of emails and texts, and also we embed it into orientation, into classrooms, into clubs and organizations. We can take this to a Male of Color program or a Moja, Puente, Camp, any affinity group, and have this kind of be a layer on top of that, or we could help run those mentorship programs within this, as we've done at other campuses. The matching, we think, is the toughest thing to do, but is the most important. So there's an algorithm that captures through a matching survey that's fun and quick and easy to take. So a student would receive that by text. They could fill it out on their phone. It is asking things like, what are your hobbies? Are you the first to go to school in your family? We don't ask, are you first gen? Because that's going to get a wildly ranging answer from students. But we try to capture the things that are going to lead to the most meaningful relationships based on 12 years of data here. And then at the end of the day, we give agency to the mentor and mentee. A mentor can say, I don't really have time for this, but I wanted to sign up anyways. I can take on 2 mentees. A mentee can say, I don't want to meet face-to-face because I'm good there. I have someone for that, but I would love to send someone a text saying I can't find parking, or what clubs and organizations should I be involved in, or any embarrassing question I don't want to ask a faculty member or staff member. And so as they are filling that out in their matching survey, they have agency over what type of relationship this is, what they are paired on. Are they paired with someone just in their major, or is that not important to them? We've had folks at San Francisco State say, I don't really care about the person's field of study. I want to talk to another single parent because I want to know, is it possible to be a single parent and go back to school? And I want to help with that imposter syndrome that I'm facing. And then once they have that relationship, they could always add or switch their relationship to something that's more career focused down the road. So the data we're capturing is self-reported data from mentors and mentees logging conversations. We make that easy for them to do. They don't need to download anything. It's not an app. It is a web-friendly portal that they can pull up at any time to access San Francisco State resources, as well as other discussion guides that we've developed with universities over the years that are helpful for mentors and mentees to have in front of them on things like time management and internships. But then once a mentee says, this is great, but I'm now having troubles with finding an internship, or I'm thinking about dropping out, the mentor would log a conversation or a flag, as Susanna mentioned before. So that is the data that comes back to Marisa and Susanna that they can actually act on. They can get it over to an advisor who can reach out. Marisa herself can reach out, or it may just be something that's nice to know. It's not something that's actionable, but it's something that Susanna can compile the data in and say to her president, 30% of our students are struggling with anxiety in the month of March. Maybe we should do more in that month related to anxiety. Or in the month of April, folks are wondering about internships. So that is not normally how a mentorship program works, right? A normal mentorship program, you just pair people up, they go off and talk, and it's considered a high impact practice. We want to actually help mentorship be a high impact practice by making it scalable, by capturing the conversations that are candid, that you can learn from, that are much different than surveying your students. Anything you would add to that, Susanna or Marisa?
Yeah, I just popped in the chat real quick, and it's I think important to note here that because at San Francisco State, we were fortunate enough back in the very beginning year when we launched peer-to-peer, serendipity and wonderful things happened where we were able to offer mentorship right after students accept their admissions offer. So our opt-in rates were 39% for the AY 23-24, but that was for all students. Right, and students who, as soon as they receive their admissions offer, our admissions and enrollment team then sends them the invitation to sign up for mentorship. Now, of course, we lose some of those students during that summer melt period, but we intend to offer them that support as soon as they identify us as the campus. So I think that's an important piece of how and when we're doing the recruitment for our mentors.
That's incredibly helpful. And I think this sinks to the why. This is just a quick description of what mentors do, what mentees learn. Mentors are sharing their experiences. Usually the question we get about now is, do you pay your mentors? So I'll ask you that question, Susanna, are you paying your mentors?
So unfortunately, not yet. So it's been a dream all these years for me to do so. I'm proud to say that our institution was able to secure the funding. So you're going to hear the story of the roadblocks and they're not even roadblocks. I like to see them as small speed bumps because we're going to overcome them. Come hell or high water, we're going to do it. So we were able to secure the funding to pay each of our roughly 600 mentors $100 to both complete the first step of training through Mentor Collective, the technical training, and then to access this Canvas page and really use it as a resource, which, by the way, is not just helpful for mentors to be able to support their mentees, but because their students themselves having these resources easily accessible to them is helpful for their own progress towards degree. And so we unfortunately hit some roadblocks around financial aid implications of paying our mentors after financial aid has been, FAFSAs have been submitted. So we're going to be working hopefully over the next year at trying to identify ways to be able to support our mentors and pay them, even if it's a modest stipend of $100. I think that goes a long way to support our students. So that is a dream.
Yeah. But until that dream is actualized, you've now been running this program for many years, thousands and thousands of mentors who have gotten a lot out of this, and they keep coming back. And we have data on that we'll show as well. But when we reach out to them and say, would you do this if, you weren't, when we have paid mentors, we ask them, would you do this for free? And the answer is always yes. I didn't do this for the stipend. That helps me spend more time on it, helps me justify it in terms of the limited time I have. But my reason for doing this is always, I was a freshman too. I was struggling, or I was a transfer student. I couldn't figure anything out. And I want to be that voice to help students overcome that. So I think it's important to keep in mind, students do get a LinkedIn credential, a certificate, a printable certificate from an accredited program, and modules along the way as well as your Canva module that Marisa was talking about. Great. So Susanna, why everybody? When you were starting out in the college, I'm sure folks were saying like, can we just pilot this with our honor students or these 20 students over here? They're the students who really need help. Why did you see it important that every incoming student and every transfer have a mentor?
Because we both, as early as the beginning year of our program, we saw good quantitative and qualitative outcomes. We saw increased retention, we saw increased persistence, and we saw good satisfaction results. So given that, we beg the question, why can't all students tap peer-to-peer? It was just that simple. And we have consistently over all program years seen good results. So it made perfect sense that we wanted to scale this and make it available to everybody.
Great. All right, what impact are we seeing? It looks like on the left, we have it broken down by college at San Francisco State. In the teal, you'll see mentors. In the blue, you'll see mentees. This is active participants that we've seen over the years, over the last 5 years. And then on the right, we're looking at total participants, 440% growth. That seems hard to believe. That's amazing. What advantages have you seen, Susanna, in making this campus wide?
Again, that all incoming students have the opportunity to feel supported by a near peer who was just in their shoes not that long ago. And that we've been able to, as Joe mentioned just a few minutes ago, we have never, knock on wood, we have not had problems recruiting mentors, despite the fact that we have not been able to fund them. And when I ask our students year after year why they do this, they simply say, it's because nobody did this for me. This is how we roll at San Francisco State. And the ethic of care at our campus is so rich and deep and built into our culture, our historical culture, that you see that through our mentor opt-in rate. And let me also add that some of the best mentors were previously mentees. So we've now, over the years, figured out that our first round of mentor recruitment for the next year's program is to really tap those mentees who were receiving the mentorship. And they are often the most active mentors in the program. So proud to see this increase of 440%, not surprised, but super proud.
And in addition to just reaching more students and having more impact, there have been any surprising partnerships, like with enrollment, for example, that have come along the way where you're like, oh, this is building bridges that I didn't see coming.
Yeah, so the best example is, and one of my colleagues from strategic marketing is on the call, and some of our admissions folks. So one of the most exciting partnerships that we just launched this summer is, although we've been working with enrollment management to invite our students to join peer-to-peer, our new students, this year we're launching a new strategy of sending out postcards to students who have accepted their admissions offer or invited to join peer-to-peer, but have not yet. So we're calling those melt postcards. So that melt postcard campaign, I believe, has begun. I've been out of the office for a few weeks, but has begun. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to partner with enrollment management so that we're really working that whole continuum for students, from yield to melt to persistence to retention to graduation. So peer-to-peer is a strategy that is a student success strategy through all parts of that continuum.
I like that. Usually we just think of this as like a persistent strategy or just kind of a nice to have that lives in student affairs. But I like that you are really trying to engage every corner of the institution and not have it just be a retention strategy. Is also reaching students before they get there as part of the MELT strategy. Once they settle in the first few months, it then becomes a retention strategy and even a yield strategy for folks who haven't quite made up their mind, knowing that they'll get a mentor and student. And I'm sure you hear from parents that they're happy that their students will be looked after as well. So, great. All right, mentee participation. Marisa, it looks like you have around 7,000 mentees supported over the lifetime of this work. How many conversations are these folks having? What is the range you see? What are the types of conversations you're seeing?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think that's one of the benefits of the program is that it's so flexible and so adaptable. So it really meets the needs of the mentee. There's some mentees who like to check in very frequently, a couple of times a week, and there are others who, they'll message with their mentors and really touch base mostly if there's an issue coming up. So the mentors will check in, but it's really depending on how the mentees, how frequently they want to communicate. So there's a lot of variety.
Awesome. Thank you. And what are some of the things you've learned about your students? So when students fill out the matching survey, both mentors and mentees, they can say what's important to them, but then we've just now realized you can use that data for other things, right? If someone says, oh, I'm interested in dancing, coding, environmental issues, as clubs and organizations pop up across campus, you can use that to target them. Is that how you've been kind of thinking about some of the data?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So that was something that is a huge benefit of the students taking the matching survey, because we get all of this extra information of things that they might be interested in or they might struggle with that you wouldn't necessarily get in an admission application. So for example, students who mentioned that they were interested in study abroad, we were able to compile a list and share that with our study abroad program. So that they could do outreach and let them know about the different services and resources and how to access that. So, and there's like quite a few things, or if students are unsure of like what to study, maybe they're undecided in their major, we can connect them with career and leadership development, and they can get extra guidance. So that's been a huge benefit.
Excellent. Thank you, Marisa. This is showing the volume of conversations again, 108,000 conversations from 2019 to 2024, 24,000 interventions. This is following up on flags, 132,975 interactions with a mentor. Those are large numbers. So let's get into the retention data here in a bit, because I know we're getting some questions on it in the chat. Before we get there, I want to talk about flags. We've mentioned them a couple of times. When a mentor logs a conversation, which they're trained to do through an hour-long mentor collective training, it will ask them, is there a challenge that your mentee is facing? And there's a drop down, and you can also just write anything in. And then you as a mentor can select, do I want San Francisco State to follow up on this or send me resources? Do they need to get involved? Or am I just letting them know? And as I'm sure all of you know, this generation of student, being the social media generation, they like to broadcast their lives. They like you to know things, and not all of it is actionable. But Marisa, can you talk about a couple of the flags you've seen that have either saved a student or made a difference in their path?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, there's quite a few that come to mind. I think One that I saw recently had to do with financial aid, just financial concerns. And that's something we can refer out to the financial aid office, but just being able to touch base and also see, the other issues that the students might be facing that come along with that, especially the stress that it brings along. If you have financial concerns, it is usually not a stress-free situation. There's anxiety that comes along with that. So you can refer out also to, CAPS and just get people connected. I think having that safety net and that lifeline before students, being aware of that prior to students leaving is really what makes it so special. So it's not really just one case. I mean, it happens so frequently that we're able to come in and just offer support before it's too late. I think that's the thing that I want to highlight.
I think so often we're focused on the overall numbers, what numbers do we report back to our grant or to administration in terms of, is this working? So we're always focused on the bottom line, but putting actual face and videos behind this where a student actually says, if it wasn't for my mentor, I wouldn't have gotten to my advisor and I would have dropped out, which you're seeing frequently. That being said, let's get to the numbers.
Can I just add quickly, Joe?
Yeah.
Joe, can I just add quickly that Marisa and I read every single flag. So the ADs, even though they get distributed to the appropriate AD, we receive every flag. I review them very closely because it helps me understand and help better train our mentors. There's a life cycle of flags and what they look like. So before arrival, before the fall semester begins, the flags tend to be about orientation, class schedule, advising, financial aid, housing. And then, they move over the course of the academic year. We see many more of them at the beginning, during midterm times. There's a cycle of the flags. And so that really helps us better prepare mentors to support their mentees. And it helps us see the overall big picture of this program and to really keep our eyes on every individual student matters.
Yep.
And that we see that.
Really well said. There's a question from Linda in the chat. What's the role of Mentor Collective when a flag is submitted? Really, our role is to make sure that flags make it to San Francisco State and they make it to the appropriate department. And that can mean a lot of different things, and it differs from university to university and college to college. We can set up kind of automatic triage where if you want the food pantry to be copied on anything to do with food insecurity, they are copied on that. But it is important that a single point person or a single voice there's a chain of command in terms of who's responding so that we don't have both Marisa and the food pantry reach out to a student. So we can certainly copy all of those organizations across campus through an automatic triage that gets it right away. As soon as student flags, it goes right to Marisa's email. She doesn't have to be logged into anything. It just goes to her email if it's a high priority flag as marked by the mentor. And then we could copy individual offices like advising, mental health, the food pantry as well. And then she is kind of the point person to triage, where does this go from here? Do I want their advisor to reach out? Should I reach out? Should I work back through the mentor? So I'm not just parachuting in the middle of nowhere. And then Mentor Collective meets with Susanna and Marisa on a bi-weekly basis. I think maybe it's down to about once a month these days because we've got this going at a pretty good clip. But in the beginning, it was every other week. We would check in to say, want to make sure we know what happened to these flags. Did they get resolved? Making sure that we're seeing them. Also, there is a pop-up for mentors that would let them know that if this is an emergency, go through the campus emergency system or 911. So they're not trying to submit a flag, but we do follow up to make sure that these are seen and addressed in a timely manner.
I'd also just like to add that on our Mentor Collective dashboard, there is a tab for flags. And so that is a warehouse of all of the flags in any given program year. And that we're able to manage them and to keep track of them. And a Mentor Collective makes that very easy on the dashboard. So it's really easy to figure out what you need to respond to, what you haven't, and enough said.
Thank you both. I think we could talk all day about flags. I think some folks want us to get to the persistence data. Susanna, can you talk a little bit about who you tapped on campus to do these studies over the years, how challenging that's been, what the data is saying, and then also how do you know it's not just self-selection bias since it's an opt-in program? How do we kind of account for some of those things?
Yeah, good question. So we work very closely with IR, our institutional research team, and we're building out analyses every year and making improvements. So this isn't even the most recent slide because we have more recent data, but this is a good show for first-time freshmen, first-year retention rates. We see from 2019 to 2020 that peer-to-peer has had an impact on retention. We will be working more closely with them about more sophisticated analyses to build in ways to think about bias, opt-in bias, but we'll be doing that. And each year our analysis gets a little richer, but really working with them closely is important.
Yep. And you're never going to get rid of opt-out bias completely, right? In education assessment, there's always going to be that element. However, I think the flags, the stories, the qualitative data that you've seen helps shade in some of those gray areas, right? If a student actually says, I would have dropped out had it not been for my mentor getting me to an advisor, that lets you know there's at least an N of 1 that was helped. And yes, there's always going to be correlation that you can't quantify as causation, but some of the stories help you make that case, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Great. What about URMs? What about first-gen students? What does their retention look like?
Yeah, so as you can see that the impact for first-year retention is positive, and that when you look at transfer students who identifies Black and Latinx, that we see really powerful retention improvements, as well as for for first-time freshmen and transfer students. So it's really helping us in our work to increase opportunity for our BIPOC students and to begin to chip away in every way we possibly can at reducing equity gaps.
Excellent. Thank you. As we near the end, 10 minutes left here, what's been a surprising discovery for you, Marisa?
Oh, sorry, I was looking for mute. So I think the big thing is just, you know, how enthusiastic and willing mentors are, and just having that desire and that how would I put it? There, as Susanna mentioned before, there's this culture of care at SF State, you know, and I think that especially students who experience mentorship as mentees, they have the sense instilled in them that they really want to give back to their community. And it really aligns closely to, you know, a lot of the values we have at SF State, community focused and giving back. But I think that that's been the most surprising thing, that there's all of this enthusiasm, and the rate of individuals coming back to serve, it is really high. So I think that's the most surprising thing, you know, particularly because they're volunteers, and it's not a short commitment. It's an academic year commitment. So it says a lot.
Yeah. As Susanna and Marisa have been painting throughout this discussion, SF State is a unique place. There is this ethos of social justice and culture of care and ethic of care that make it unique. When Susanna started the program, it was a lot of social workers who had that mentality who were mentors, but I can assure you that these are numbers we see across all programs and institutions. And I think part of it is just, as Marisa was discussing, lowering the barrier to entry. A lot of times when institutions launch a mentor program, mentors are expected to have the answers. They're expected to be like advisors or tutors, and they don't have to be. They too can be struggling. They too can be on academic probation. Some of our schools will exclude academic probation students, but not all of them, because they can still point students towards resources and they can learn just as much. I think that's what you're seeing through the videos that students have logged, right, Marisa, that they're surprised that they're learning just as much as their mentee is in some cases.
Yeah, and I think I might just, you know, add a little extra to that, you know, with the mentorship program, and I'm not saying it's always a positive thing, but, you know, students who have experienced a few academic struggles, or maybe they face more challenges, that can be a big advantage when it comes to mentorship, because they're more relatable. Students are, mentees are more open to ask questions without feeling fear or feeling that the mentor may not understand. So I think that's also a great thing to know, that you don't have to be a straight A student to be a mentor. Like, everyone is welcomed, even if you have a very low GPA, or maybe you're struggling with other things. There's still a lot of benefits and assets that students bring to the table. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Susanna, since you started this back in 2018, what is your dream for the program? Where does it go?
Well, we currently offer mentorship to students in that first year, as Marisa just said. But we know that mentorship from a near peer can be super powerful throughout their entire trajectory during their college time. So my dream, and I think a dream that I share with my campus partners, is to be able to offer mentorship throughout the entire student's life cycle and trajectory and journey at San Francisco State. So in a perfect world, in that first year, all new students would receive mentorship. And then moving into their junior and senior year, or somewhere in between, we could fit in some mentorship, but really moving into that junior and senior year, thinking about mentorship coming from faculty, coming from alumni, and thinking about career and professional development. Since post-completion and post-completion success is now something that all of us across the nation are being asked to consider in higher education, I think setting our students up in ways and partnering with Mentor Collective to do that career development work we've got active alumni who would be willing to step up. So thinking about that whole life cycle of peer mentoring would be wonderful for our students. I just also want to address something in the chat, recent questions about, do we have difficulty recruiting mentors? And the answer is no, we have not had difficulties over the course of, we're now launching our 5th year of the program. And I'm looking at my dashboard right now. As of today, right now, and this number may change before our call ends, we have 944 new students receiving mentorship. And that is, we have 237 mentors currently matched. We've got many more who have completed the training, who are on the wings, waiting for additional new students. So we expect to be serving roughly 3,300 new students with mentorship, and have not yet had complications around mentors stepping up. So it is, I think that's one thing that also makes our program unique, that I've been trying to unpack and understand with each passing year.
Yeah. So it sounds like ratios right now, and historically have been typically one mentor to say 4 to 5 mentees. Is that about right, Susanna?
Yes, I think 6 is the average number of
Okay.
last year's program.
And again, going back to the matching survey, mentors and mentees have agency over that. If a mentor only wanted one mentee, they could do that. However, our research shows that they're usually happiest if they have at least 2 to 4, sometimes up to 7, because if they just have one and that student isn't responsive, they'll be soured on the experience. But we do give them that agency to determine, what does this relationship look like? Great. All right. Ending here, I just want to share that there are other perspectives outside of this one and stories to tell about belonging, retention, and MELT. But I want to thank Susanna and Marisa so much for your time. This has been amazing and inspirational, and I've never met people as student focused as you both. So I want to thank you. Any last questions from folks? Please put them in the chat if we haven't made it to them yet. So we talked about self-selection bias. International students, we can certainly break them out. So in the matching survey, we can ask, are you an international student? Or we could even input that on the back end where they don't have to fill that question out. And then in your dashboard that Susanna just had pull up, her Mentor Collective dashboard, she can see everyone who's signed up, who they're matched with, how many conversations they've had, how have those conversations taken place? Were they face-to-face? Were they by text? Were they by Zoom? And then you can break that out by international student, first generation, and any demographic available, either through defined by the matching survey by the student, or back on your back end if we want to put your FAFSA data in the system as well. And this program is only in the first year of the student's journey at San Francisco State. Is that correct? Whether they're a first year transfer, it's a 1-year program, and then mentees become mentors. Is that correct? Or they can?
Correct. They have the option to become a mentor.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you all. There's a white paper here if you want to scan this, EdTech for Equity, where we talk about closing equity gaps and give some other case studies as well. And then in the chat, if you could please, Jen, if you want to put the link for folks to continue the conversation, we would like to hear from you. We would like to talk to you and learn about your institution. So please contact us, and then we will learn more and share a little bit more about how we can support your institution. There's the link. So please click on it, take a second just to fill it out, and then we'll get in touch and continue this conversation. Thank you all. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Appreciate your time.
Thanks to everybody.
Thanks, Susanna. Thanks, Marisa.
All right, thank you. Take care.